When I was in school, I dreaded PE lessons. I was so self-conscious, I hated being there. So I definitely wasn't super sporty or athletic, but I was active still, and I would take part in different sports and activities. But then as I got older and I had to look after myself more, I tended to eat more and become less active. And then when I hit 18, I decided to move to Australia, and I was suddenly living on my own, working full time, and I had to start cooking for myself and looking after myself. And it was at that point where the weight really started to pile on. And I look back and I see pictures of myself, and I was bigger than I remember myself being at the time. But that being said, I knew I was overweight, and I knew I was also unhealthy. I really didn't know where to start. I thought I was eating a relatively healthy diet because I was cooking all my meals at home, so I just didn't know what to do. But when I really started to look at the science of it, it was all coming down to one thing, and it's actually very, very simple. All it is how many calories you're eating versus how many calories your body is burning. And when I calculated it, the amount of food that I was eating was far outweighing the amount of calories that my body was burning in a day. So all I had to do was flip it and consistently eat less calories in a day than my body was burning. I didn't restrict myself. I didn't cut out any particular food groups. I didn't stop eating chocolate or drinking coffee, the things I really like. I just reduced how much I was having. And I think that's really important because you kind of go mad if you restrict yourself too much. And then came the exercise. I was not fit at all. I couldn't even run 500 meters. I couldn't lift my own body weight. So I grabbed some fitness DVDs and I just did those every single day. They were about hour-long videos, and I just repeated the same ones over and over and over again for the 3-month duration. And eventually the weight started falling off. After about 6 to 7 weeks, I started to see bigger and bigger increases in how much weight I was losing until I reached a healthy weight. I just continued to do that for at least 2 years. I was at a pretty standard fitness level. I weighed a healthy weight now, and everything was pretty good. But it started to become a little bit boring and a little bit routine. Ultimately, after a couple of months, I probably gained about 7 kilos. And although I didn't look too much different, I could feel it, and I needed to change something to try and get me back into the healthy mindset and the healthy habits that I had before. So I started following some people online who teach calisthenics and who also do it as a hobby, and they were doing some amazing things with their bodies. So I started working on the fundamentals of calisthenics. I noticed that my strength started to grow, and every week I could do a little bit more in the exercises. And not only did I see differences in my strength, and not only did I see differences in my body, but I also saw differences in my mindset. I was no longer training for aesthetics. I was no longer training for weight loss. I was no longer thinking about what I was eating all the time. I was training because I loved it. When I initially lost the weight, I was still quite restricted with my diet, and I was constantly assessing whether I'd done enough exercise to allow me to eat that day. It's not a very healthy mindset that I had, whereas now I have a much better outlook. I train because I love it, and I eat because it provides the fuel that my body needs to be able to exercise. And I really think that bodyweight training and calisthenics has been the one thing that's kept me moving forwards. I've always had something to work towards and strive for, and I believe that had that not been there, I may have become quite complacent in where I was and potentially put the weight back on again.